Welcome back, everyone. This is part two with my interview with Pam Roy. If you missed part one, be sure to check out last week's episode. Now let's dive right into part two of our great discussion. And if you are enjoying this episode or my podcast, don't forget to subscribe and write a review. Your feedback means the world to me, and I would love to hear your thoughts and ideas for future episodes. Feel free to reach out. You can click on the link below of my episodes to direct messages directly to me or reach out on Instagram or email me. You can find all my information in my show notes. Thanks for tuning in. I think what you're doing is so inspiring, so powerful. As a former educator, I'm also a mom of three kids, but also I was an educator. And I realistically left for the same reason. As much as I loved my job, it was so rewarding working with the children. But I never forget, there was like one day that I was teaching in this classroom and there was like a leak in our ceiling. They were young and they needed my guidance. And I had one that had like ADHD, and I'm trying to like balance it out and make the lesson of the day fun and inspiring. But at the same time, a lot of them are distracted by the leaking ceiling and the carpet. As I'm walking, you hear like the noise because the entire carpet is soaked. But my principal, they would come and monitor to check. You would have to write the standard of the day on the board.
Yes,
And
yes.
they would check to make sure the teaching moments were not allowed. Like if we were in a great discussion and we were talking about something, and if someone came in to check on you and you were not following the standard that was given to you, you would get in trouble. I want my classroom to be my classroom, and I want us
Yes.
because the kids engage the
Yes.
best when
Yes.
there's that moment where like they're all like really listening to you, they're really in tune to what you're saying. And I don't want to like stop that and be like, okay, now kids, we need to, talk about this standard because this is what's on the schedule.
Yeah, and it's not even how life works.
No, by the time
But
I do that, it's like
yes,
I've lost all the retentions. They're all over the place.
I was reading an article that was talking about moral injury of so many people in the medical and the education and the social working areas. And how he described it was, he got into the practice of medicine because he cared about helping people. And suddenly, we have our emergency rooms that are being bought out by venture capitalists. You have to produce, and you have to see so many people in so amount of time. Again, it's a numbers
Like
game where there's an
you have two
input
minutes
to
to tell a
output.
doctor, like, okay, this is
Right.
what's wrong with me.
But they're looking at their screen. They're not even looking
Yeah.
at you,
Yep.
right? So because they're having to put all the data in, and we've lost this connection, and doctors are feeling it. They're having to fight the insurance companies when they say, I want this medication. And my daughter sees it with speech therapy. She's like, oh my gosh, mom, here's this kid and he really needs therapy. And yet they say you can see him 12 times, and she sees him for the 20 minutes or whatever, 50 minutes of time. And she's like, this is like an assembly line. Am I really, truly, effectively changing? And it's the same with teachers. Teachers, I admire teachers. Of course, they're needed, but they're not needed to follow somebody else's standardized thing. They're needed to share who they are. Even Viktor Frankl, when he was touring the country with colleges right after he published Man's Search for Meaning, so this is in the 60s, and the professors say, these kids, they're, suicidal, they're committing suicide, they're doping themselves. What's going on? How do we teach them values?
Okay.
And he said, values can't be taught. They must be lived. If you love your science, teach them the love of science. Teach them who you are. Share that. That's how. That's why one of my first things in the chapter 4, where I talk about what parents can do. Let's do that. That's why I'm so inspired by women and the gathering of women. We've this mistake of this nuclear family where we're supposed to be perfect at everything and handle everything outside of having a tribe or a clan or a neighborhood or whatever that can help support
Right.
this raising of children. And it's just, we're exhausted. And so Sunia Luther, who's a friend of mine, She's since passed, sadly, but she was a Yale researcher who did a study who mothers mommy because she found that the resilience of children and the well-being of depended on the health and well-being of the primary caregiver, which is usually the mom. So that's why I advocate for moms to support each other and also women, the second prime, to really encouraging each other to be and do what we need to do. And that we encourage each other to be out there, just like you're doing with your podcast, to do that. You know, we don't need to focus. Our kids can find their way if we allow them
Right.
to go out and discover, and they'll find mentors. My kids all had mentors wherever they went. And they learn to deal with adults, they learn to deal with peers, and they're not so defined by a single stat. You know, when you're at a job, and one daughter was a hostess at a very busy pancake house. And, you know, people were upset if they're, you know, how much longer, you know, there'd be
Yeah.
2 hour waits and she's having to check the bathroom and do all of this. But she learned, you know, how to deal with people. And she wasn't, no one cared about her grade or her test score or whatever. She was just in this community working at figuring out how to do her job. And that was a break from people looking at her as somebody who was just a single number, which, by the way, is falling by the wayside anyway. A lot of people out there coming up with new ways where we look at portfolios rather than single numbers, transcripts, because that says nothing. It says
Right.
nothing.
I'm in the midst of everything. My older daughter has graduated. My middle daughter is her junior year. It's a very tough year. Like I see, and my heart goes out to her. I see the constant stress that she's under. I just feel
Yep.
like she can't relax. Like going through the process of just learning and enjoying, and it's just like the year is going by so fast. All these checklists and all these things, but it, like you're saying, when you're in that environment, and we unfortunately are in that environment, we
Yes. Yes.
establish ourselves there. So
Yes.
you do that, as much as I talk to her and I say, oh, it doesn't matter what college you go, it doesn't
No.
matter. When she's in that, like she's like, Mom, what are you talking? Like she is the one who is like putting so much pressure on her
Yes.
son, who's like a 13-year-old. He insisted that he wanted to take like a geometry class to get ahead. And I was like, no, I was sad. You know, he was going into eighth grade. I'm like, this is summer. This is a time where you can relax. Like, don't. He's like, but mom, like all the other kids are doing it. So
Yep.
then I'm going to fall really behind. I'm like, how can you fall
Yep.
behind? You're taking a geometry class in high school and you're in middle school. But that's the pressure these kids are under. And it's really hard. So with that being said, I mean, I think a lot of people might argue, I'm sure you've had that conversation where they're saying that's how we've been all trained, right? That we're
Yes.
saying standardized education is the best path to college. And if we go to college, the kids are going to get a staple job. They're going to get that financial stability. They're going to be successful and they're going to live happily ever after,
Yes,
right?
I
But
know. And
that's
we're all
that's
seeing it not
something,
working.
right?
Yes.
That's something
Yes.
that's been like ingrained in so many of our, parents. And that's
Yes.
why we have all these, I mean, the college counselors that are charging so much money and the tutoring, and it's like you hear your friend has that same tutor, so you have to go get that same tutor. It's this horrible, vicious cycle. So, how would you respond to the view that this financial success is the pinnacle of a good life and that our education system is a guaranteed ticket to living it?
Okay, so this is where you don't argue it. I mean, like really, I just say, well, how's it working for you? How's your home life? How's it in your community with the kids who have graduated? I mean, we're all seeing it. It's just cognitive dissonance. We don't want to see it because in many ways, letting someone else handle it, check the box or whatever has been fine. And I think that I was in it too. I had it with my kids, and my kids wanted, you know, to belong. So of course,
Yeah.
at various levels, they were wanting to belong. But yeah, this is where it requires a working with them. You know, again, I chose not to be the policewoman with my kids in so many things, but really to challenge some of their choices. One of my daughters called me when she had taken a test, and she's just telling me, I feel so stupid, Mom. I feel so dumb. All my friends, they're very black and white thinking, all or nothing.
Yeah.
All my friends are whatever. And I said, oh, yeah, I can understand. And I said, but uh, really, you're not a number. You're not this. And she's like, I know, Mom, but you don't know. This is why, the whole thing. And so I
Right,
said,
of
okay,
course.
then do you want to change schools? Do you want to go somewhere else? And again, we had done alternative education. I said, I'll do something different if you want to do. No, Mom, this is where my friends are. I said, so good. So now you get to learn a really important lesson. Can you be you and be worthy of being you in an environment that wants you to be the same as everybody else? Because if you learn that, you got a good skill. And of course, they're
Yes.
young, but I was just with her. I just advocated. And I had a woman who called me telling me, my son's in his senior year. He was at a public school and he was getting D's and F's, and really he just needed to get through that last year, and so she wanted him to go to counseling. And I'm like, he's not the one that needs counseling. We got to counsel the school that's trying to make him be. I go, if you're in a public school and you're getting D's, I mean, you're working hard. He's screaming at you saying, I'm in distress. And of course, he was doing addictive behaviors and it's whatever. I go, get on his team. Say, I hear you. This is obviously not working. Do you want to leave school? Do you want to get a GED? Put out the whole thing. I'll tell you, getting a GED at this stage is a lot harder than just making it through. And I said, but if he knows you're on his team
Right.
and you're going to help figure it out with him, then it was different. And so it ended up that he wanted to go to prom and he wanted to do some of the social aspects of school. And so there was a hook for him to at least show up. But that relief valve that everybody wasn't trying to be making him, there's so many creative kids. And I'm telling you, this environment for creative kids is tough. And, again, 30% of kids didn't go back to school, and there's a whole lot that are disengaged. So when you think of the number of kids that this actually is working for, and at what they give up to be the people pleaser so that they don't, and that what they need to do to belong, and then they go out in the world and they're disconnected from these very bubble-like environments, and they have no idea how to
Yeah.
pay attention to who they are and where to go and how to create the communities wherever they go, which they will be doing through all these multiple transitions that happen for lots and lots of reasons. Because that's, personal pandemics happen all the time. So anyway, so he ended up making it through and graduating. He did enough. They work with the teachers, and the teachers were like, how do we help him get through?
Because
And
at that point, it's like they need to be seen and they need to be heard. And
right,
when you offer that advice for that connection to happen, then it was like, okay, like someone is hearing me. I'm
right,
not so trapped. And so that
right,
just changed the whole path.
right, because it wasn't him that's the problem.
Yeah.
And too often we diagnose the child, like this when I was at the public school, and we were in a meeting with parents of a sophomore kid who refused to get out of bed and go to school. He's like, these 80-minute blocks were killing him. And mind you, at my program for school counseling, where we were all doing this practicum, one of my fellow students' job was to watch kids who looked out the window. I mean, oh my gosh. And then we say, well, now they have ADHD, they have ADD, they have,
See,
I
that's
mean,
the whole problem. The moment that there's an issue, it's like, no,
yes,
this child, we need to diagnose this child and
yes, we
give
need,
this child
yes,
lots of medication.
yes, so that they can make it
Yep.
through. And when we look at that going, oh my gosh, why they know this is irrelevant. They know it's not working. They don't want to be part of this. And yet we're like, something's wrong with you because
Yeah.
you're not measuring up,
So
as if
sad.
every single person could be good at math, science, English, and what it costs to be good at all those things in time and energy. It's not about really discussing or arguing, because I can give you a gazillion statistics about valedictorians and everything else. it's really about touching the heart. How is it
Yeah.
working for you? How is it working for your family? Now, for you, how do you shift? Because the only control we have, this is why I called it
Yep.
parenting from the passenger seat. I don't care who it is in your life, whether it's your husband, your mother, your child, your sister, your friend, we can never drive a person's life. We can never, everybody drives their own. So really, we're in the passenger seat. It's very scary going through those DMB things.
Yes. Oh
But
God.
but we are there. And how do we honor that thinking long term that we want them to navigate life? And so in some ways, acquiescing to what this um, pressure is teaching them to not. So that they go in the work world, they're not having it. They're
Yeah.
not, I'm not giving up myself anymore, you know? And my middle daughter, who worked for a Los Angeles company, was like, my tribe is in New York right now. I want that experience of living in New York. But the company said, no, you can't work remote. And so I told her, I said, look, I support you. You got to support yourself. I'm not supporting your lifestyle, but you can find a way to earn a living and figure it out. But you figure it out, but you follow your community, right? And some people are like, oh no, she's got such a good job. She's got health insurance, big company, big, great money. For her, wasn't even it. She was craving the experiences of life, which during your 20s, go for it,
Yeah.
right? Go live on a commune. I don't care. I mean, find things that pull you in a way that sometimes once you get those responsibilities, why do they have to do it so young? Why do kids have to go to school straight from being in this bubble into another bubble that literally these colleges are in the same input to output business model
Yes.
that we have? And let me tell you, the kids, I mean, I have a lot of experiences with a lot of colleges, good colleges. Um, no one's watching the shop. Adjunct professors, they don't even get insurance. They're working other jobs. They're not able to be there, even if they, and it's, these people are good people. I'm not saying they're not good people, but the way the system is
The system
oriented,
has changed.
it's a conveyor belt, and it's transactional, and they have their standardized whatever, and they want you in. They're going to add all the fluff and bells and whistles,
Yep.
but it is not mature kids for the most part who are going. So you have these kids who haven't had these life experiences that suddenly have all this freedom and know. When we went to school, it was just there was tenured professors. They had office hours. You had, I mean, you didn't have as many kids. Like, don't forget now they take a two
Oh, right.
bedroom, and because the more money they have to have.
Yes.
Um, so it's this business. I look at it as a business model
Yeah.
that uses human capital to be able to sustain itself, and we're relational. So how do we create that in between? So all my kids chose college. I offered for all of them not to go to college. My nephews didn't go to college. Both of them could, but chose not to. Both of them make six figure salaries, working for companies they went up in, and they own houses, and there's many paths, but we have a status thing, especially for families where the parents are highly
Yes.
educated. They perceive that even when you look at your life, and we look at our community and we think, is this healthy?
Right.
I'm not seeing a healthy community,
Yeah.
and we're all craving it. We're all craving
We
it.
are all definitely.
When I put something out to gather women, especially, which is one of my loves, is women to gather together to support each other during this time. I mean, they answer the call in droves. I mean, we are looking for this. And
Yes.
I think so that's why the answer is yes, this is this environment. Okay. And I told my kids, yes, you have to play the game if this is what you want to do. But how do you do it by still being yourself within that? Because that's what we all have to do, right?
And that's
And
how we stay happy. Like
yeah,
once you lose that, that's what I think we all experience as we age, which is what I was going to talk about next. we've talked about this a lot back and forth. I mean, education, what you're doing is incredible. I'm in awe, and I have your book right here. I will have the links in there, and I suggest everyone gets it and purchase it so they understand what Pam's movement is all about. But on another note, you and I have discussed a lot of labels often given to women as we age. That's another big topic that we like to talk about.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the aging process? And do you feel like you are I mean, I feel like you are, but do you feel like you are at an age where you can fully embrace who you are and enjoy the journey of kind of aging gracefully while living life to the fullest? Because that's what we want our kids to do at the end, right?
Yes,
And that's the
yes.
whole message that we're trying to give to them.
Well, I mean, yes. Okay, as I said, I'm 65. My 60s have been the best period of my, I mean, all periods have good and bad, but yes, I've been able to step in, especially challenging myself to write the blog, put things out there, and really to speak out. That's not meant to tell other people what to do, but to share a perspective. And then, of course, seeing how important it is for young people to have older people to inspire them to look at,
Yeah.
wow, look at the shifts. I mean, I'm not doing one
I'm
single
sure
thing
your
at once.
daughters are so inspired by you.
They are very proud. I mean, I will
Yes.
say my daughters, again, from don't talk about education to like, Mom, I love what you're doing. It's been a hilarious journey. But no, but it is. And they were my teachers and they were my motivation to say, what kind of life do I want for my children if I am saying live in a construct? Right? Live in a construct of not necessarily being you, but then you got all the stuff. What is it that who you are becomes so important. But I love aging because you're allowed to let things unfold. At a certain point, you realize that life happens and there's a lot we can't control. It just does. But we do have this power to respond. And once we do that, it's it's fulfilling. And again, happiness is not the goal because happiness is an emotion. Sometimes you're happy, things happen, you can't be happy. It's about fulfillment, but it's not lollipops and rainbows. I mean, sometimes I'm like getting myself into things. When I did the audiobook for my book, I wanted to throw up every single day. I'm playing Helen Reddy, I Am Woman, blasting it as I'm driving there, just going, I could do this. And, so it hasn't been like, oh, it's all great, graceful. I mean, I fumble through so many things, but I'm, the pull of what I feel is important to share is so strong that I have to quiet that part of myself down. So graceful is probably a stretch. I'm all in, muddied,
Do you
whatever.
think though, Pam, that you had that? Was there like a certain time where you found the flow in your step and like this boldness and this courage? Were you always like this, or was there like a certain time, like certain age that you just felt like, no, this is my time. This is where I'm going to embrace who I am, and I'm going to be very blunt and bold and honest about everything I believe in.
Yes, I would say for me, I drank the Kool-Aid through my 20s, went through the 30s of the, dark night of the soul of what am I going to do now? I believe this. Now it's not here. I want to be, and then the 40s, I had young kids, so it was kind of survival mode, right? And also the watching of these systems try to take my children and try to tell them who they should be. And that is the moment that the
It
spark
shook
came
you
in.
up, I think.
Yeah, it was Mama Bear got poked. And I was like, hell no. I know that relationships, I know that who they are cannot be standardized. I know that the world is changing faster than I can protect them with. And again, because my own experience, I didn't believe a job was going to be the it can be, it's not to say it won't, but that job was going to be the cornerstone of their life that made them happy and fulfilled and whatever. Again, it can be, it's
It
not to
can't, right?
say, but the likelihood that job, I mean, even look at a doctor who goes through medical school, does all this, and then ends up in a managed care system where they can't even do, or a teacher who gets into the profession because they love to share the love of learning with children. And yet they can't, because the measurement of those children and their
Yep.
own job security comes from performing to these tasks. And so it's a
That
trade-off.
was me. Exactly.
And so I had this period in my 40s, which were, okay, this isn't wow. And my kids, I'm trying to, figure out how to navigate. And then it was really in my 50s that as they were going through high school and as they were going, that really I thought, I can't stay quiet. I have got to step up. I have got to do something. And I still didn't know. I always say that there's this fog when you kind of feel a pull, like something's not right. What can I do? I don't know what to do. I just know it's not right. And again, everything that I'm doing, I think once you align, I wrote a blog about this, and with a quantum physicist, Viktor Frankl, that was talking about, the quantum physicist was saying that in this quantum field, we each have a frequency that's unique to us. And we have 50 trillion cells constantly moving, the energy of our bodies, and the heart cell knows not to be the, liver cell, intelligence beyond anything, so unique to who we are. And he was saying, and this is what Viktor Frankl says, how do you do this step by step? You don't go into the future because we don't know what is. And by the way,
Right.
we're co-creating the future right now. Okay. So we listen, we intuitively know. How often have you thought, I knew that, I just didn't trust myself? So you intuitively do the best you can. Something pops out and like when I had to quit my job or when I left my marriage, when I decided I can't be who I am in this context. And by the way, we did a collaborative divorce. Our family still spends holidays together. It was just trying to figure out a way that I could do these things that I was
Yeah.
tremendously pulled inside a traditional concept or construct of a marriage and a lifestyle that appeared very nice, right? And to trade that for me, my authenticity of what I felt I needed to do and share in the world, and honored that we just had different values. And there was not a wrong or whatever, it was different values. And I wanted to model for my children that you honor that authentic contribution that you make. So I think we feel this pull. So you listen, you trust it, even if it seems crazy. Doing a blog, crazy. Doing films, crazy. Leaving my marriage, crazy. Leaving, jobs, crazy. But I listened. And the most important thing is to act, which we have to, it's one thing to sit there going, oh, I can do that. That's why Viktor Frankl wasn't so much on mindfulness and meditation for hours. He was on contemplation, but the discovery happens when you actually take the steps and put the energy out there to do it.
So the
And
three things were you started with
listen,
listen,
trust,
trust, and
act,
act.
and repeat every moment. Listen, trust, act, repeat. And then in doing that, life unfolds in an alignment, and synchronicity happens when you're aligned. That's what the quantum physicist was talking about.
Yeah.
I can say from my own personal experience, crazy how synchronicity, the right people, the right money, the right whatever shows up
Yep. The flow, because you just went
whenever
the
I'm
right
in.
way. You're
And then you
going,
get in a flow, and it doesn't mean you don't get stuck at certain points. It was
of
interesting when I
course.
when I knew I wanted to write a book for parents based on my experience and um, my relationship with Be Unbound and different ways of doing things. I I thought, oh, I can take my blogs, and so I do this intellectual outline, and everything's all good, and couldn't write. I was writer's block. I'm like, I had the outline, I had the everything. What's wrong? Well, because I was writing from my head, not my heart.
Yep.
And I threw it out, walked the beach. I'd run home. Suddenly it was flowing out. I couldn't write. I would wake up at 4 o'clock every morning, run to the computer. I'm like, I don't even know what came through. It was amazing, that experience of flow. And then all of a sudden it'd be noon or whatever it might be. And then there was days that's like, what am I going to say? Oh, and then it comes. And so the whole thing was just honoring that flow of really listening, trusting it, and then putting it on the paper, and then away you go, and then trusting all the frustrations and things that happen with that self-publishing, and then having, I don't do a lot of promotion of the book and all of that. It's kind of an organic spread
Right.
as people read it and become interested, because I have so many other things that are coming.
Your hands are full.
They are, and it's funny because my first book, which was I wrote with my best friend of 45 years, The Inspiring Wisdom of Viktor Frankl, was a very small book, 21 reflections, self-reflections, because you can't tell a how-to. It's all about things that was really to talk about the essence of Viktor Frankl's philosophies in a modern context. And so Beacon Press, the publishers of Man's Search for Meaning, are now publishing that book in August as a hardcover gift book, and it'll be distributed by Penguin
Um,
Random House. So crazy. Like, really. I mean, that I just wrote because the film, we were getting ready to do the film. We had established the Viktor Frankl Institute of America with Alex, Viktor Frankl's grandson, and my best friend Maura. And it was like, well, we have to have content for modern audiences that is just lets them get without having to read. And a lot of his work is dense because it was written for a certain time, and he was a medical doctor, brilliant, but not your everyday reading.
right.
And so
No, I
it's,
have it right. I mean, it makes it so much easier when it's right there. It's like easy to just pop in, reread a page that you just need
yes,
like a reminder, right?
yes,
Yeah.
but it's your own context. It was like, even when we were talking with Beacon Press about what the format would be for the hardcover gift book and how we would incorporate it, we're so trained to do a how-to, right? And
Yeah.
yet it's unique to us. What might work for me won't work for you, won't work for, and that was the interesting thing, I think, with a lot of the parents as well, is talking to them going, well, it worked for me. My mom made me go to college and it really worked out great. I'm like, that's fine. Your child might be different, maybe not. The era certainly is different. We're so rosy glasses that if you could just get to college, somehow that's going to prepare you. And of course,
Yeah.
all we can show you in so many ways it's not, but it still is that holy grail for so many people, and especially families who have kids being the first in their family to go to college. At the same time, the world's creating so many different things. So I honor all of it. And it's really about passenger seat parenting our children. So that means that we're taking them into consideration and not just what we think is best. I mean, my daughters have taught me, like, the things they're doing are nothing I would have thought would have been what I thought that they would be doing. They just discovered it, but they own it. I mean, my two daughters in New York live in walk-ups, sixth-floor walk-ups, no elevator, no dishwasher disposal. I mean, crazy given the
Wow.
California lifestyle they did,
Yes.
but they own it and it's theirs.
And it's
And I
so
can
good for them.
it's,
So
but
good
we
for
did
them.
that. We
Yeah.
had to struggle. And so the minute we try to create a world that only has one side of the balance sheet, that, oh, we do everything right, you've taken away what makes us human, that makes us learn, is this meandering, this trial and error that happens, that we need to have our children know how to do, and not always be. But those messages are so important when things don't work out. It's as important that they do a job saying, not me.
Yep.
Because then when they find something that says, that's me,
And
they
they're
go,
brave enough to actually admit it.
yes.
Yeah.
And the apathy and the boredom that we have when you're not doing, you just kind of turn everything over. Fine, this is what you want me to do, I'll do my, versus being engaged, like me writing a book, it's like in the flow. I mean, whoa, it was just great. And we can get into the flow when you can find it. And sometimes you're not. Same thing when I was writing my blog, I had a lot, and then now I don't write very often in the blog. I mean, it's these ebbs and flows of life that you're
Yeah.
called to, in periods of exhaustion and periods of peeling things away. I wrote a blog called The Art of the Pivot, how important it is that we let things go. There was a time I was going to train moms on being mentors, for kids, on helping guide them through this transition. And but then I thought, I don't want to run a company training moms. I work with kids, so I still just ad hoc mentor kids with people who find my way to their, or find their way to my door. And I only work with kids who can call me, not their parents. And so really it's about that, but we have to give that life experience and let them choose. And there's so many ways to do college if it needs to stair step now.
Mhm.
It's all out in multiple ways, but only 22% of college students do internships. So they go all these years, all that money, not seeing the dramatically changing world. So my encouragement to parents is make sure your child has one foot in real world learning alongside traditional education. Traditional education's still there,
Right.
but they need that context and application
Yes.
in the real world and the relationships that come with that. And then when they're in college, if they do go straight to college, again, trying to find something where they get out in the world, even work. I mean, all my kids I had, work or volunteer or do something alongside what they're, so they weren't so in the bubble. Different kids, different things. They push back different times. I had to challenge myself to back off on some things, especially as they get older, really. You have to allow them the muddling through. And of course they look back now at certain things. It's really fun to have kids who are young adults and you're just like,
That's
and then
amazing.
other things where they taught me and I'm like, okay, you're
We
right.
learn so much from our kids. I mean, Pam, just listening to you today, I have to say, you are such a role model. One, as your parenting skills. I mean, the fact that you're just opened the world for your kids and gave them so many choices, gave them a voice from the beginning. That's really inspiring. I don't see a lot of that happening in today's society. Your wisdom, your philosophy, but most of all, your passion. Like when you talk about this, your book, I can see how passionate you are about changing this system, about helping our kids, about changing the generations of kids to come. And
Mhm.
I really admire and I admire
Thank
you. And
you.
I've learned so much. And
Likewise.
I really hope that our listeners are doing the same thing. And then in addition, my podcast is to inspire women 40 and older to just, it's not too late. You can do anything. And you are a prime example of this. I mean,
Hmm.
look at you. You are aging gracefully and beautifully, but most important of all, you are aligned, you know your values, and you're passionate about living a very fulfilled and authentic life and you're making a difference along the way doing all of that.
Well, I
So
think,
it's
yeah,
like check, check, check.
thank you. No, but I think the whole thing is we don't change the system from inside the system. We change it from building strong communities,
It's all
supportive
about
networks,
community.
and honoring each other as we're going through it. I mean, I think my book is a validation as for people like you who look at that and go, yes, maybe I can put some numbers to it
Yeah.
or perspective, but hopefully that brings you support. And then there's a community of other moms that are with you that say, okay, let's challenge each other to be who we are, to model that for our children. And I'm sure your children are very proud of you with the things that you're doing. Say, I'm going to put myself out there and show we are in this second prime, as my
Yes.
friend Gretchen Leonard, or a third
Love
prime or
Gretchen.
whatever. Yes, I mean, so I'm grateful for you for taking the time to, number one, read my book. I'm always so honored when people do it, and then be interested enough to have the conversation.
Of course. Well, and I think we can talk for hours. We're going to have to make this into 2 episodes, but in summary, we must teach our children that their character matters far more than their grades, which is what we've been talking about this whole time. Our responsibility as parents and caregivers is to love them unconditionally, not just for their achievements, but who they are at this very moment. Authentic love is the greatest gift we can offer. It nurtures self-worth and confidence. Pushing children to excel in subjects they don't really care about or complete tasks that make them feel meaningless and that it doesn't really truly educate them. Why have we allowed their worth in society to be reduced to a letter, a number, or a piece of paper? Life's meaning is far more profound than this. Today, Pam's wisdom and experience have reminded us that aging brings courage and insight. We must pass this gift on to our children by teaching them to value themselves for who they are and to honor their values. We can help them grow into adults who, like Pam, will live bravely and authentically. And I was going to read one section from this inspiring wisdom of Viktor Franklin because I just felt like it was a perfect way to end, and it's responsibility. Let me get my glasses. While we enjoy freedom, it may well be that we are not yet sufficiently aware of our responsibility. If we were, we would soon find that there's plenty of meaning and purpose lying in wait for us all. Just think of the underprivileged parts of the world, of the underdeveloped people and nations. Think of the needs and the opportunities. Think of man's planet-wide responsibilities, and no one will ever have to complain of lack of meaning or lack of purpose. Our ability to choose what we do in life is what gives us freedom. Frankel repeatedly emphasized that we are not free from conditions, but we are always free to choose how we respond to them. Because we are free, we are responsible for who we become and how we address the issues that impact our families, communities, and the world. And I just felt like this was so important and so deep because, listeners, it is our responsibility, and it's one person at a time, and it's one community at a time. Pam, is there anything else you would like to share with us today?
No, I mean, I think find your community. I mean, I'm so inspired. When I was kind of going on my alternative path, there weren't a lot of people and a lot of options. Today, I would say that's so different. And so more and more people are waking up, and this is where, especially the moms, joining together to support each other in looking at this and saying, okay, we have to acknowledge the system is where our children are, and but what can we do? What can we do to enhance ourselves, model, have responsibility, and enjoy? So I will just say, life is so much more fun when you're in community and when you're sharing who you are and you have other people reflect back to you that that's a very valuable thing.
Thank you so much. All the links will be in my show notes. Thank you, Pam, again for being on Female Fluence.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today to Female Fluence. Together, we can influence and motivate other mind-like females. Your job is to feel alive, be in control, and always be true to your own self. Please don't forget to subscribe so you can continue feeling inspired. All the links and notes from this episode will be posted on my website, femalefluence.com. Don't forget to also follow me at Female Fluence on both Instagram and Facebook. Lastly, if you are in need of a woman empowerment life coach to help you identify the barriers that keep you from living the life you seek, please send an email to info@femalefluence.org. Remember, my friends, don't just exist, but live your life to the fullest. I'm your host, Pearl Mashur. Until we talk next time.